Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back to the DEVY Hour. It is week 2 of the rookie mock madness. We are excited that Kraig is back with us, and we are going to partake in an adventure down SuperFlex way too early drafting. Thank you to those that have tuned in, whether it's on YouTube or listen to the podcast. I know some folks reached out to me recently that had started following the podcast. Thank you guys. It's amazing that our content's getting out there and making a difference in some way, shape, or form. If not entertaining with our one per show, hopefully entertaining with good information and relevant facts and figures for you. As always, we got Kraig, we got Paul. It's going to be a fun one. So we've talked a little bit. You know, we did a mock draft last week of 1 QB. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. It's on YouTube, or the podcast is out on any of your podcasting platforms. This week we're going to jump into a SuperFlex rookie draft. And we are going with the assumption that these guys that we are drafting are all coming out next year. Obviously, that could change. You know, you keep hearing folks tell Trevor Lawrence to don't do it, to wait because the Jets are a dumpster fire, and that's the assumed number 1 overall pick. But we're going to put him in there because why would he stay around any longer than he has to? There's literally nothing else for him to accomplish. So with that being said, last week, we did it one way, and we're going to do it the same way this week. We each just take a pick. We start Kraig, we go Paul, we go me, and we just kind of round robin that until we get to the end of round 2. We'll go 2 rounds again, and then we'll kind of go from there. This is something that we're going to update on a regular basis throughout the offseason, or throughout the season and then into the offseason. And this will coincide with Roto Heat's rookie content that's to come. We are part of the team that's going to help produce all of Roto Heat's rookie content for the 2021 season and beyond. So with that being said, we're just going to kick it off and get going. Mr. Kraig, you're going to get the number 1 overall selection, and I'm sure it's going to be a very difficult one for you.
Yeah, I was thinking because I follow a lot of this stuff on Twitter, and I haven't seen anyone that for SuperFlex rankings didn't have Trevor Lawrence as the number 1 pick. I'm sure there are some out there, but as much of a consensus as you can get on someone, if you're doing a SuperFlex rookie draft, he's the guy that you take. So that's where I'm going with. And you can also see all of our individual rankings for, I think it's top 50 in these over at rotoheat.com if you want to see beyond the 24, 25 that we get to tonight.
Absolutely. Pick 2, Mr. Paul. How are you? And go ahead and give us your pick.
Yeah, it's a good night. Hopefully we can murder some more fools later and get another dub tonight on COD. Hopefully. I got one last night. Should have had 2, but...
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes. Very epic mistakes were made.
You just tried to delay taking Justin Fields here, Paul?
No, I didn't. No. He was not under consideration for that selection.
we could spend a show about how much Paul doesn't like Justin Fields at the 2.
Yeah, let's see here. Scrolling my list, he would hardly be taken. But anyways, Jamar Chase is my selection. In all actuality, this is probably going to end up being the QB 2 for somebody. But I'll just make the safe selection and move on. He's the best receiver, probably was last year, although that's not with hindsight. Jefferson and Lamb have looked pretty nice, but he probably would have been the number 1 receiver last year. Yeah, I don't really have to elaborate on him. Everybody likes him.
And
it's a matter of how
and he's so good and he's so talented, and he's probably going to be in the conversation for one of the top few picks. SuperFlex, 1 QB. I mean, there's no reason not to. If somebody takes him before any other quarterback, I don't mind it because, when you're drafting, I don't care if it's SuperFlex, 1 QB, whatever, you want to go with, I call them the safest plays, but, you want to go with the guys that are going to produce. And I don't like taking Justin Fields at 3, but I'm going to because my list kind of dictates it. But Justin Fields is not safe. There's plenty of holes in his game that could cause him to not be successful at the NFL level. I think there's a lot to like about him that he could develop, but that doesn't mean that he will. And quite frankly, I think at this time, even next month, he could be more my QB 2 or 3 because you guys have been hearing me bang the table for Kyle Trask before he was producing. I think he could jump up into the conversation for QB2 with Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I mean, you could even put, I don't like Mac Jones enough to do it, but people could put Mac Jones because he's consistent and he doesn't make too many crazy decisions with the ball. He has decent ability to read through his progressions. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, really, after QB1, you could throw a bunch of guys in the mix to be QB2. And in SuperFlex, that would bump them into the top 5, which I don't know that, as we move throughout this, probably Travis Etienne and Bateman and some of these other guys will make me go, you know what, these are just safer. I'm going to go with the safe play and go here. But for now, it's Justin Fields because it's Justin Fields. And as a Michigan man, that just makes me hurt inside when I do that. But go on to number 4, Mr. Kraig. It is all you, buddy.
Yeah, we'll get the other quarterback that's generally up here off the board, Trey Lance. He's my number 2 guy. Currently, like you said, this is all fluid, especially with him not having as much playing time as a lot of these guys this year with the one game. And not having an amazing game, that team that he was playing, I think it was Central Arkansas or somewhere in Arkansas, that was sort of like their Super Bowl because all the eyes were going to be on them and they're playing against this media darling that's probably going to be drafted in the top 10. So, they got up for it and they, caused him a few problems. But still, overall, I like him more than I like Trey Lance. So taking him here, or more than Fields, he is Trey Lance. So taking him after Fields here, I'm fine with it. I like it at pick 4.
All right, Mr. Paul at number 5.
Makes my selection a little hard. I was thinking one of Fields or Lance was going to fall here. Fields went a little high, but, when somebody leaves Ohio and their number gets a little high, that's a Samuel Little reference right there. Over under on 93. I mean, Samuel Little got 93. Do you think that Justin Fields gets over under 93 touchdowns in the NFL?
Under.
Good, very well. Well, are you including rushing and passing?
And receiving?
Oh.
Yes.
I would say I would take
Yeah,
probably over then because I could see a team using him in so many different ways. And he could be converted to some other position, which could blow it out of the water.
He could be another Terrell Pryor for a season or 2.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't really mean that. I'm just making a dig at Ohio State because I can.
Yeah, and because we know that someone's not listening here that probably should. Anyways, at pick number 5, I'll take Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota. I would select someone else, but we'll discuss them here in a minute. Someone with an injury concern, I will take Rashad Bateman.
Okay, so that is easy for me. I'm taking Travis Etienne. He's my favorite back in this class. And like I said, I like sure things. So back to you, Mr. Kraig at the number 7.
We discussed it last week. I think it was the same sort of basic spot, but I'm going Kenneth Gainwell, who's my current number 1 running back in this class. So that makes it easy for that. And then, like Paul said, with guys farther down in some of our various lists getting crossed off, it's going to get a little more interesting here. So,
yeah, because he's quite a bit lower on my list. So it'll be fun to see how they bounce around.
Yeah, I watched more film on him last weekend, and I'm not as high, but I see what you see in him. I'm kind of kicking myself for letting him slip in some of my DEVY leagues as far as he did. I kick myself watching that film. I guess I'm up next. Even this last week, I've been super high on Zamir White, and he's just been showing it. He shows that he's not just running into random spots. He picks his holes now. And when you're that big and that fast, look out. Even with the ACL injuries, look out. So, and especially if you're someone who you probably own this selection as a playoff team, he steps in immediately and should help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the funny thing is, even as I was putting this list together, because I waited till today to do it because I've been watching film throughout the week, but even, looking back from our show last week to this week, I'm like, yeah, I got guys that I shouldn't have taken where I would move these guys, and I'm just like, oh, well, this is kind of the, the litmus test. This is what happens when you're doing that, but so it'll be interesting to see kind of how we start our first one compared to what actually transpires as we get to our rookie drafts. At the 9th spot, I'm going off my list, so I'll go Kyle Trask, quarterback in Florida. He continues to look like he has good command of the offense. He moves the ball well, has prototypical size, has a good athletic profile. He's a guy I think as we get to draft season and they put the guys through their paces, NFL scouts are going to love him, and as they get them on TV, everybody's going to love him because he just fits the profile of a quarterback that I could see him going to a team like the Saints if they don't keep Jameis. I said it last week, the same thing. If the Saints get him, I think he fits really nicely with what they like to do and pushing the ball down the field and some of those things. Although I think Jameis, they'd be crazy to let Jameis go because I really like Winston. But I don't know, I'll take Trask here and feel good because now I've got, I've got what could be a quarterback one, but we'll see. Mr. Kraig, number 10 to you, buddy.
My number 2 wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. He could end up, we'll see how stuff goes. Chase isn't having as great of a year, and I think Waddle's really showed out this year and continues to week after week, and how much of that is quarterback related with clearly not having Burrow this year. We'll see how it goes, but either way, he's my number 2 at least, so I'm taking him here, which, like Paul said, if you get your number 2 wide receiver this late in the draft, in the first round, you got to be pretty happy with it.
That's a great thing about SuperFlex is guys shift down because quarterbacks become a more of a premium selection. So That's always a good thing when some of these guys slip down. Paul, at the 11th spot, what you got, bud?
Fun fact, we have a league where Waddle this week, he got dealt for Kraig Paul essentially straight up. So if that lets you guys know how people feel about DEVYs and rookie receivers who may be awesome and may not, just throwing it out there for
no
the
way.
show.
I'd ask for more in return. I'd have wanted more for Waddle.
I would too.
I'm not a Kraig Paul fan, so I don't know. But I'm just throwing it out there so you guys can think at home on that one or in your car, whichever way you're listening. Number 11, I will select. I'm going to stick with the Brevin. Jordan is the best tight end in Florida. I might be wrong. We'll see, but I will select him. This is probably a selection that has been dealt from someone making a run at the ship and is probably owned by someone who picks for second or third so they can sit on the selection for a year or two.
Yeah, Brevin, on my sheet that I put together pre-show, he's 12 for me, so this is right about where I was expecting him to go. I love him. He's my favorite tight end in this class. Pitts isn't far behind, but he's right there for me. So at the 12 spot, I got to go with a running back that definitely needs to bounce back healthy and hasn't looked great so far, but I'm going based on what I liked before he got hurt, and that's Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. He's not looked great, so this is one that if he doesn't get it together and then has a rough combine season, he's not going to be here. Like there's no way. If he slips to being like a 4th or 5th round running back, he's not a first round pick, not even close. So this one I would do with a big asterisk because so far he's not impressed me this year. But beforehand, he did impress me a lot. Kraig, start of the second round,
Well,
buddy.
I think I've. No, I haven't. I was going to say I've almost copied Brad after every pick. But I'm going running back 2 here. I'm going Najee Harris. I really like him. He's my number 2, I think. I'm looking at this correctly. Running back. A lot of this running back stuff, you see people move up and down based on where they go, which we won't know, of course, for several months. But if he maintains that position, and I could see even potentially being my number 1, but somewhere in that range, if he's your top 3 area and you're getting him in the second round, great value. So,
All right, the 2-2, Mr. Paul.
Okay, yeah. I will select the other Florida tight end, Pitts. He's got an immense upside. At the 202, this is probably owned by someone who is not good, and they can sit on him for a season or so. If this is a SuperFlex TE premium league, you can probably jump the tight ends another 4 to 6 spots, maybe, depending on landing spot and their 40 time. But I really like that selection. I don't think he falls this far when it's all said and done.
Yeah, potential. I mean, because in theory, potentially people are going to have the conversation who's the better tight end. So he, in theory, could even be up into the the 8, 9, 10 range if he turns out to be the tight end 1. So here I'm going to take. He's probably. I mean, the tough thing for me with the running backs in this class is I like a lot of them, and I don't really. There's not really one where I'm like, oh, he's by far my favorite. Like even ETN, I like. But I don't love them more than any of these guys like that are at the top of my list. So I could see me moving these guys around a little bit depending on how they perform with combine and obviously draft stock. But I'm gonna go C.J. Verdell from Oregon. I like everything about him. And I was even more happy that I was able to get him in a package this week in a DEVY league because I've tried to trade for him in a few leagues over the last 4 to 6 months and nobody was even touching it. So it was fun to get him in a package with some guys that I can try to flip and get even more DEVY upgrades. Because I like my DEVY squad, but I want to upgrade a few guys. All right, so we're at the 4 spot. Kraig, back to you, buddy.
I missed who you took. I'm sorry.
C.J. Verdell.
Oh, okay.
So that means you got to pick a running back now, right?
No, I don't. Sorry. Although we're close to one that's fallen from our previous week as far as my current list. But Rondale Moore is my next pick. Again, it feels like we're rehashing stuff that we went over last week because we did go over it last week. But just really it's size concerns for him that I have. I mean, guys like that can succeed in the NFL. I'm not saying it's going to keep him from, but when that's your big concern, that's something that is harder to overcome because it's just who you are. So it just has him lower on my list than a number of these other guys.
All right, Mr. Paul.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I mean, I didn't have him as high before this season, before last season, and we're taking him early, mid-second. The size concern here is real, especially when he gets hurt every single season. Yeah. So with the 17th selection, I will select the guy who I have at number 3 overall on my SuperFlex big board, Journey Brown. He might be out for the season with a medical problem. And I say medical problem because they didn't give a whole lot of info. He could be number 3 when this is all said and done. He could be Justin Ross, and him could be having a drink and just saying, "Hey, what if, dude?" Yep. We're not doctors. I hope it works out for him. I don't know.
I mean, from last week to this week, I just didn't even have him on my list. It was like medical condition, not playing all year. Who knows what happens? I mean, that really is a button hook to him, and he's such a talented kid too. So, At the 18, I'm going to go, let me look at my list, Devonta Smith, the other wide receiver from Bama. Not a lot to say about him. He's a super talented kid, good size. I like Waddle considerably better, but Smith here is a pretty decent selection. At the 19th spot, we have Mr. Kraig.
Yeah, I'm going with the other tight end of the generally considered top three with Pat Freiermuth. Um, I don't have like a real big gap between the three of them because I think they can all produce. And like I said last week, I think he's going to have a better shot at immediate playing time with being able to block better than the other two. And in the NFL, I mean, the stance that I've kind of taken with these guys is most of the time your favorite tight end of the group, you can probably wait a year or two and get cheaper in a trade just because it generally takes longer for these guys to produce. And even if they do produce early, someone like Evan Ingram, you can probably get him a lot cheaper now if you're still a really big fan of him just because for whatever reason, injuries, team situation, he's fallen off. So with any of these tight ends, I probably tend to take them later than a lot of people do just because I think you can probably get them cheaper by and large later on. But again, even just comparing where the other two went, I think this is a great value to take them.
Paul looks like he wants to say something. He's just got this look on his face like he's about to drop the knowledge bomb.
I'm gonna start David and Joku in like 3 leagues this week because Austin Hooper's sitting out, and I'm just listening to everything that Kraig says about the tight end value goes way down and yada yada yada, and I'm just sitting here laughing at myself. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, unfortunately,
That selection.
I have a league where I had to elevate Cole Kmet and hope that I get something because I had Austin Hooper and whoever my other tight end is on bye this week, and it's like, oh, and
Mike Gesicki.
Oh yeah. So I tried to trade for Njoku, and I offered the guy a 3 and a 4, and he's like, "Listen, I don't hate this offer. I don't know what to value Njoku as. I love the talent and I did as well." He's like, "I feel like a 2 is too much. I feel like a 3 is not enough." I was like, "Yeah, that's why I offered a 3 and a 4." He's like, "But I can't accept it." I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not giving you a 2 because I'd give you a 2 if I knew they were actually going to trade him and he goes somewhere. But if they keep letting him die on their roster, it doesn't do me any good." So yeah, I agree with you.
So, anyways, with the next selection, I will select Seth Williams, wide receiver, Auburn. He hasn't been everything that you've been hoping for, but you still see flashes of the upside out of him, fairly consistently. But they're flashes. Height, weight, speed, freak. We discussed him last week. I have him significantly higher than this on mine, but if he falls this far, it wouldn't overly surprise me. We'll see when he runs 40 yards in semi-underwear in March in Indianapolis. Hopefully Indianapolis. Hopefully they have the combine this year. But yeah, we'll see because the 40 for him is huge.
Well, and with everything that's going on, I can't imagine why they wouldn't. I mean, the Colts have fans in the stands, and typically the combine, everybody's social distanced anyway. I mean, they don't say it like that, but typically guys are sitting in their own area so that they can do their prep and not have everybody looking at their cheating on their tests. So I'd be surprised if they didn't have the combine this year down in Indy. I like Williams. I think I blame the team more than I do the player because what's around him isn't. It's okay, but there's not. It's he's kind of the star in my mind, the kind of the best player on that team. He can't throw himself the ball. He can't give himself accurate passes or even do anything to make the quarterback better. So I definitely think he's a guy that really could elevate his stock at the combine, in the rooms, have the interviews, helping the coaches and scouts and everybody see that he seems like a really smart kid. Anytime I've watched interviews or listened to him talk about kind of the football IQ side of things, he seems fairly intelligent. So he's a guy I could see shoot up the boards very quickly. Another guy I think could shoot up boards is a running back out of Mississippi State that I like. I'm going to take Kylan Hill here. I like everything about him other than the fact that he went to Mississippi State. But I think he's a guy that could get in the conversation for early second round type pick instead of late second round type pick. I don't think he'd really push for a first round pick. I can't imagine anyone drafting him before round, late 3, early 4. I would guess is probably where his ceiling is. But I don't know. We'll see. He would fit nicely in a team that has kind of a big pounder where he can kind of be used outside, kind of get to the edge and make big plays kind of thing. But we'll see. 22, last pick for Mr. Kraig of the draft. Who are you going?
I am going to go with someone that we haven't talked about previously. That as I'm looking at stuff more, I'm a bigger fan of being that SuperFlex, and that's Zach Wilson. I really like the way that he has come on. I mean, he did some of it last year, and the nickname that he has, the Mormon Manziel, I hope he doesn't turn out to be that, because we don't need any more of that in the NFL. We had a nice, fun experiment with him. But the guy's stats this year are amazing. He's poised. He's got that persona. That doesn't mean everything. We've seen that with some guys like Baker Mayfield. You got to have more than that. And there's other things that can contribute to that, but from what I can tell, he's got a great head on his shoulders. He's accurate. He knows what he's doing out there, and he's confident. He's worked his way into the Heisman discussion, so if I can get him at the end of the second round here in Superflex League, I'm really happy with it.
BYU quarterbacks. You just don't hear a lot of those being brought up in the conversation. So I'm excited for it. It would be great to see a kind of a different spin on things. A BYU quarterback being drafted relevant would be great. So I'm with you. He's 24. When I was putting together my sheet, I was like, you know what? He intrigues me. Him and Mac Jones are both guys that I think could push themselves into a conversation in Superflex drafts, depending on how things go. Paul, what are you thinking, buddy?
It's amazing how BYU has the Mormon Manziel when the last relevant guy that came out of there for being a religious school was Jim McMahon. It's amazing how that one happened, isn't it? It's amazing. Anyways, 23 makes me look at the sheet and go, do not sell your second rounder low, even if you're in playoff hunt, just because the quality that you're going to end up with here is
big,
high.
Yeah.
I'm considering, and I'll just, because I know that you're at the end of this, but I'm considering Sermon, Borghi, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, and being homeristic and selecting Terry. And I would be fine with any of those 5. I will stick with my sheet, though, and select Trey Sermon, running back out of Oklahoma / Ohio State. He transferred this offseason. I really like him. I got 40 concerns about him, but other than that, he plays really smooth. So, Trey Sermon.
All right, so I'm not going to go based on my sheet because Mac Jones would have been the selection, but I keep, like you, I kept going, man, there's so many guys that I like here. Borghi was on my list. Terry, obviously, Terry's had a down year, but I blame the team more than the player.
Blasphemy.
And he got hurt.
Yeah, there was an injury as well. But I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown because the value is there. I mean, if he's even, remotely Pittman-like, and I think he has a lot of the characteristics in the skill set, I think he's going to get drafted high. I probably, second round would be where I would expect to see people start talking about him. Second or third round is probably safe for him. This is a great spot. Back into the second round, you're getting a nice wide receiver. Terrace Marshall's another guy that I would have put in the conversation here. Obviously Mac Jones because of Superflex, and there's quite a few guys. So the one thing that I will tell you in the end is this is going to be a fun draft. There's a lot of talent. So don't. Yeah, like Paul said, don't sell your picks short, don't sell them cheap. And there's a few leagues where I've tried to acquire a lot of second rounders just to make sure that I've got opportunity to grab some of these guys because there's going to be a ton of talent. So that's it. We're done. Our Superflex mock is in the books. Kraig, thank you for sticking around and helping with the mock. I know there are plenty of other guys on the RotoHeat team that want to get involved, so the mocks coming up may be even bigger. We may have them with more people on the team. We've got outside folks that are even interested in being in the conversation. So we're going to continue to up our game and try to bring 2021 even further than we did 2020. I know 2020 rookie content went well, but we want to go even bigger. So keep it locked in here to rotoheat.com, RotoHeat here on YouTube. If you're podcasting, whatever podcast platform, DEVY Hour, IDP Heat Seekers. I mean, look for RotoHeat and you'll find all sorts of podcasts. So for Paul and Kraig, thank you guys again, and we will talk to you again soon.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to. Do it.